Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. Today, we're going to be discussing alone is never a requirement. Now, I'm going to read something that I pulled off of our guest's website. It says, the tunnel may be dark, each step through overwhelming, but light is ahead. Hope is on the horizon, and compassionate hand is being offered to guide you through. Concealed behind filters and facets lie the untold truths we silently carry, regardless of origin, unspeakable events, tragic circumstances, or overwhelming experiences. All can inflict the heavy weight of guilt, shame, anger, and fear upon us. Moving forward feels impossible. Yet amidst the seemingly unchartable or unreachable horizon is a glimmer of hope. Healing awaits. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our beautiful guest today, Cindy. Cindy, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be with us.
It's an honor to be here. It really is.
And it's so and thank you for that. It's so cool because we actually connected on LinkedIn, which is a really cool platform, right? And
Yeah.
I just happened to run across something, I think, or maybe it was vice versa. It was so long ago, I don't remember. And I was reading what you do, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to reach out to this gal. I got to see if she'd be willing to come on the show. So again, thank you.
You're welcome. No, I thought we really connected quickly, and it was over some serious conversation about homicidal ideation. And I shared my story, you shared your story, and we kind of took it and ran with it. So it is an important topic. And yeah, so I was impressed that you were so open and raw in telling your story.
Thank you. Well, if I'm asking my guest to be that way, I need to be that way as well as a host, right? And,
Yeah.
and you know what's crazy about that is I actually wasn't that way when I first started my show. I was always talking about my ex-wife's story, right? Not sharing a lot about my own. And it wasn't until this past January 2023 when I really opened it up. And it was a good friend of mine who actually brought that to my attention. And it just so happened the day he mentioned it to me, we happened to do a podcast on it that exact same day. Instead of me being the host of my own show, my guest host was the host and she interviewed me. So yeah, I'm like, it's about time that I open up because if my guests are, I'm not being honest with them if I'm not doing it.
That's true, but I have to say to get to that point, it's a hard step where you're kind of like, okay, I'm just going to show everybody I'm taking down all my masks. I'm going to let everybody see my flaws uh, and I hope they still embrace me. And once you step into that where you kind of go, oh, maybe these aren't flaws, or maybe these are strengths. Maybe these, being open is actually helping and healing. And I think when you get to that point where you're like, oh, this is actually better. I'm more true to who I am by sharing. And it's a hard part to get to because you feel we were talking before the show that when I was doing this, when I first made my announcement, like, oh, I was sexually abused, physically abused, emotionally abused, I was homicidal. I mean, there was just so much. I was homeless. I mean, it just goes on and on. And I thought, I felt naked out there. I felt like everybody was judging me. I felt everybody was looking at me. I felt truly naked, like I'm pushing my cart, like, oh, there's that poor abused girl. And those were my scripts, those were my thoughts. But when as time was going on, I was able to kind of walk in my shoes a little bit better. And I kind of grew a new skin, and I just embraced, like, okay, this is who I am. This is what happened in the past, but it doesn't mean I have to carry like this. This is the past and this is who I am presently. And it was a really, like, talk about walking in a new skin. It's sort of empowerment when you could kind of take everything so that everybody could see, you're naked, you're vulnerable, completely exposed. And when you share that, there's nothing that anybody could hold on or poke at you. There is nothing. You're just showing it all. And I have to say that's empowerment, what I would call empowerment.
No, you're 100% right. It is empowerment, right? Because no one can hold that carrot over your head ever again. When you're the one that's actually telling the story about it, right? And opening up. And I've joked a little bit here and there, which it may not be the right thing to do. It, you know, 14 years ago, 15 years ago, I was the biggest liar and manipulator there ever was. And I had mastered my craft. When I found out I was that type of person because a friend told me, I've been working on myself for the past 14 years. And I joke sometimes going, my honesty gets me in trouble a lot. And I don't say things to hurt someone, right? That's
Correct.
not my intent. It's that you know which circle I'm standing in, right? I would rather have you know me, who I am as an individual, how I say things, how I look at things, than putting on this fake Al Richards that I want people to like when I'm not even that same, when I'm not that person, and I've had a few, not many, not, I probably maybe say two or three that have really pushed me away because I do speak my mind. The rest, I know that they know me deep down as an individual, and it doesn't matter to them because they know the type of person I am. And I think that goes with what you were saying, because before the show you were talking about how when you started doing what you were doing, a lot of men that surprised you, a lot of men was coming up to you and saying thank you for what you're doing. And you were asking them if they'd be willing to share, and they're like, nope, 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 nope. And especially for a man, because society has molded us to where we're not supposed to say our feelings. We're supposed to keep everything held in. And I think that's one of the reasons why suicide rate is going up between the age to, I think, 18 to 55.
It's epidemic now. I mean, it's crazy what's going on out there, especially with the younger teens, young adults. It's really tough out there. I think it's I don't know about this, but I just look at social media and all these other platforms where we are there's a supposed image, but I think that's always existed, but a supposed image of what we should be. And right now it's from what I could tell, it's, popularity and you're really cool and, whatever it may be. And, maybe back in my time, it might have been the Marlboro Man or, I'm showing my age, so I don't want to go too far
I
here,
was
but
gonna say, oh my gosh, if you remember the Marlboro Man, you and I are right around the same age then.
but I think there was an image, that we have, and I think there's a perception of what we should be like. And so I think it's a lot of expectations, and it's unfortunately we write these things. It's part of life where we do lose our identity or where we're going, and it's the struggles of that. And sometimes through that, we just feel there's no hope, and or we turn to something else, and like addiction. We were sharing before too that addiction, you know, I didn't, when I was going through this, so I actually dissociated. I had no idea what had happened to me as a young girl growing up. Um, I knew I didn't like my father. My dad's my perpetrator. And I knew I didn't like him. He was very violent, very manipulative, super smart, which those are all those could be, they're attributes for what they are. But I just knew that I didn't care for him. And when I became a teenager, sexually involved, then I started to have flashbacks and I started recognizing what had happened in my past. And I was devastated. I thought, I've lived a lie. I thought that, I was a farce and that I really didn't know anything that happened. And if I think about that, how our mind just saves us, just like shutting down and like, no, you're not going to remember this. You're going to develop up until, a certain time. And then your mind's going to release this. And, but it was hard when it hit me. I thought I was so disgusted with myself. And I think it's crazy that I actually took that on, as I went through more healing process, but that is one of the process where you internalize the hate and the loathing and the grief, and it becomes yours, and you start to wear it and feel it and then act it out. And I used to, after school, I would come home, and we lived actually overseas at that time. And I was in Spain, and they didn't, it's different circumstances there, but they had these big ledges in our apartment. And I would sit out there every day after school and think, like, I just want this pain to stop. And if I took this leap, if I just took this leap, then it would all end. It would go away, because I just could not handle that pain. I couldn't handle the shame. And all I could think about is how to make this stop. And so I contemplated, like, should I jump? Should I not? What would happen to me? What would not happen to me? What can I like? Find one thing that I like about myself. I had nothing. Find one thing that I want to be here for life. And it was really hard. I had to start writing things down, and I would get off the sill and like look at it and go, okay, I had a great cup of coffee today. It's like, is that going to keep me here on earth with this pain? And it was hard. I have to say, I was 16, well, close to 17, just going through this. And it became I'm going to say obsession, how to get back and find myself and heal. And so now I'm 60 and at this journey. So I was going on 17, and this is why I'm here, is to talk about and breaking stigmas about sexual abuse and about anything that holds us back in life that's traumatic, because it's all stems of trauma that we either go in certain directions, and where is that going to take us, and how do we heal? So this has been my journey, and it has been a process. And I have to say, am I perfect? No. Am I healed? I don't know, because I still carry a lot of garbage around. I still have my things that hold me back. I'm not very trusting. What am I? I have trust issues and betrayal issues. And it doesn't matter how much therapy I go to, no, if I stand in my head, if I go to this workshop, I still, when something seems like a red flag to me, I'll just back up, and then I start assessing and doing my process of like, okay, like, what's going on here? Why am I so afraid? Like, there's nothing loving feeling about this. Why am I so afraid? And I have to tell you, there was one point there as a kid, because I did a flashback, and I remember just feeling so much shame about this one thing about, I was contemplating killing my dad out of protection. This kind of came back through like where I was. And I remember as a kid and thinking about my dad coming into bed, and I had taken the cutlery, the butter knives out of the kitchen. I would practice stabbing my pillow, thinking like, I gotta get out of this. I gotta end this. My mom and my sister were just like so tortured by him. And I thought, I gotta make this all stop. And, I remember thinking, what kind of person thinks that? And having so much disgust, I guess you could say. And like, I just thought, I can't even share that. But when now I reflect back, that kind of person is a person who's trapped. That kind of person is kind of going back to animal, like, how do I survive? And it becomes you against the other person. And when I look at that, I can't believe I was, 7, thinking that. So there is a part of shame in there, but still there's a part of like, wow, we are meant to survive tough things. And things repeated for me in life. And, some people don't have this many things repeat in life. And I used to feel sorry for myself about that. But, I went to my therapist. Oh, I wanted a psych eval because I thought it was crazy. And I went to go have a psych eval. And I said, so why is this always happening to me? Like, why is there always some form of trauma happening? And he leaned over, and I remember he had his PhD, and I thought he was going to give me the most amazing advice. And he said, Cindy, and I don't want to just, it's the S word, so I don't want to say anything. And then he just said, S happens. And I just looked at him, I go, this is what I'm paying you, these big bucks for that? And like, this is what I was so disappointed. He goes, some people have more and some people have less, and some people can rise above, and some people get stuck in the slightest minutia. And I have to say, so I already had kids then. I was in my late 20s. And I thought, I don't know, it really kind of made sense to me. Some people do have more, and some people could have, like, their parents could get divorced and they're stuck in that thing. But there's no right or wrong in it. It's just part of our traumatic responses. That what are we going to do with it? Where is this going to take us?
And I'm glad that you ended it like that. I had a good friend who I was talking to a couple months ago, and we were talking about the message in the mirror. And we were talking about everything that's happened to us in our life, how there's a lesson behind it, right? I mean, there literally is a lesson. If we stop ourselves and we start connecting the dots backwards to figure out what that lesson is, and for me, I feel as though, I'm a spiritual person. I believe in God, and I believe that that's a word I'm working on changing, is the believe. My version of it is we continue to go through the same things until we get the lesson before we can move on to the next chapter. Because there was a lot of stuff that was happening in my life that I'm hitting my knees and I'm asking God, why? Why do I continue to go through this? Why am I continuing to suffer? And when I finally figured it out, all that stopped. So that's why I look at it now, until we get the lesson, we'll continue to go through that, right? And I just can't. Whew. I mean, Cindy, as a father who has two daughters and two grandchildren, two granddaughters and a grandson, I can't imagine going through with what you went through, right? The trap that would put you in. And I don't blame you for thinking the way that you were thinking. That's for sure. And having trust issues, I know a few people, just a couple, who are going through that as well. They analyze pretty much everything that you say because they're
Mhm.
trying to find that slip, right? They're trying to find something. Why is this person being this way? Why did they say that? There's something behind it, right? And then they'll start going through their program and they'll find something. Now, whether it's real or not, I have found that majority of it isn't real, but they'll find something, but it's real to them.
Right.
And it's something triggered them inside. And I don't know, maybe is that something that you feel with having that trust issue, that these triggers are still surfacing? Because our subconscious, and I'm sure you know this, our subconscious is there to protect us. It doesn't know what's real, doesn't know what's fake, doesn't know what's a lie, it doesn't know what's truth, right? It just knows that this happened to us, and now it's going to do everything it can to protect us.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes I know I've done it. And probably still to this day I do it because I'm not perfect either, and I'm working on getting better at it. Is, you know, um, just really looking at it, yeah, and just go, is this real, or is this really just a trigger that I'm going through that's causing me to look at it this way, and really evaluate it again, and look at it to see what it really is. Is it just my head telling me this is what it is? Or am I really feeling it in here? Right? Because it's like walking into a room where someone had just argued. As soon as you walk in that room, you know something was going on in that room because you can feel the negative energy. Our
Right.
bodies don't lie to us. However, if you walk into a room where everyone's happy, we feel that too. So I think our bodies tell us more of what's happening than our brain does. And I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there.
No, I have a son who was born with a rare brain tumor, And so at 2 months, they discovered it. And at 4 months, it had grown almost the entire side of his head. And so I didn't know if he was going to live or not. And as far as I knew, historically, nobody has ever survived it and made it to their young adult years. So he did survive it. But they took his speech center away, when they removed the tumor, and they also took his emotional center. And so there's two things I want to touch on. Having this, the lessons in life. And I said that, to Brian's my son. He's 31 now. And he said, so what's the lesson that I learned in life that you needed to learn? And I have to say, that was a hard pill for me. I was like, what? And he's like, okay, so there's a lesson in life. What's my lesson? I get this is your lesson, but what's my lesson? And I have to say, it's sort of a double-edged sword in that process, but there is, and I think eventually we both sat down and we were able to kind of talk about it. But when you're stuck in that anger and you just feel, like, what is the value in this? Because you're so mad and you're kind of stuck in that. And you should be. I think there's a time where you can grieve that and feel it, and you have to. And then there's another process where you're kind of distancing yourself, and then it becomes a little bit more of a healing journey, but you have to go through these stages. And okay, so we were talking about that portion, but I think where I'm going with this is that it is, we all are given our challenges in life, and it's just a process. And there are lessons in this, but it's really how we handle emotionally where we go with this. And I used to tell him when he was younger. So he was about, let's see here, he was heading from high school, kind of out of high school. And this is what I told him, because this is what I believed as a kid when I was experiencing all of this. I said, Brian, when you're younger, when you were a kid, your brain was actually in your belly and in your heart. I said, you just loved everybody. When someone took a punch at you and I would say, hey, apologize, you would go up there and hug it out. And then I said, but you thought like everything was fun and great, and you were exploring, and you just thought through your gut. And I said, and now you're in high school, and I see you thinking from your head, and really not so much from your heart, but just thinking from your head, because intellectually you need to now go into the workforce, and you need your head, your cognitive functioning right now. So right now you're not really using your heart as much. And I said, I could see it. I could see the way you're talking back to me. And I said, and that's okay. I'm good with this, but that's okay. And I said, but I still see you using your gut. And I said, your gut is so important, that intuition of deciphering. And I said, don't lose that. Keep sight of that. And I said, one day when you start moving through those real years of like trying to earn money, 30s, 40s, you start getting to your 50s. I said, I hope someday that you'll be able to connect your head, the head thinking, your heart thinking, and your stomach thinking. And I said, because I really do feel that is having those three things in alignment and using them and functioning with them, so that we're not stuck in this fear and judgment, and we can just move through life and just kind of go, yeah, this person's weird, or I feel so off, but oh well, and you don't own it, or you're just feeling like great about yourself and you just love yourself. And I think for me, that was a huge part of getting to, and I didn't really believe that it could be so simplified, that they're all stages, they're all lessons, and however they're shown to you or given to you, there are steps to this. But I think taking the time to feel everything and go through the stages of, if you need to rage, work with your anger, I used to come back home and I would get a good workout in and clean the bathtub, which I hated doing. And I would scrub that bathtub. And, if I was in, whatever stage I would work with that. I would use that for my benefit. And if I was more like, I don't want to rage, I want to just use my brain, and I would work and I would just put that energy into that. And it would vacillate. Sometimes I felt crazy doing this, but I remember thinking, use use whatever energy you have and use it for your higher purpose. Use it for yourself to make something better.
Yeah.
Like like my clean bathtub.
And I bet it is clean. It's crazy that you said that because when I get really upset, that's what I do is clean. I either go to the gym or I clean. Those are my 2 escapes. Now, if I'm feeling hurt or frustrated, well, if I'm feeling hurt or confused, then hiking. I love to go hike in our mountains because that really calms me down. And Cindy, I'm really glad that you put it that way because I've mentioned this in other shows, and some of our other guests have done the same. It's okay to feel our emotions. I mean, seriously, it is, right? If you're feeling down, feel down. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Or if you're feeling mad, feel mad.
Right.
Just don't stay there, right?
Yeah.
S- Feel those emotions, feel whatever. And sometimes it takes a while. I mean, that was probably about 4 weeks ago or so where I went through this funk where about a week and a half to 2 weeks. I mean, I was I was depressed. And I couldn't figure out why I was depressed. I just could not figure it out. I mean, I've recently gone through a divorce after being with this same woman for 18 years, and it hurt. However, I didn't have the really strong hurt feelings and maybe that's a lot of it was is I wasn't feeling guilty that I wasn't feeling that way.
Uh-huh.
And it's because I had dealt with so much of it in the past, right? And her being gone for long periods of time through rehab and different things like that, it's almost like I was alone during those times anyway, and I had some other things going on in my life. And yeah, for a week and a half to 2 weeks, man, it was just really eating me up. And even my mom was saying, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be fine." She goes, and moms have that intuition, right? They know, and she's like, "No, there's something wrong." And I'm like, "I'm okay. Just allow me to go through what I'm going through. That's all I ask. Okay, just don't ask a lot of questions. Just allow me to go through this." And finally, one Sunday morning, I woke up, and I tell you, it's like somebody stuck a freaking energized battery in me. I just woke up, and I'm like, "I'm done. It's over with. I'm good." Right? And I got right back up, and I've been my old self again. However, like you said, I allowed myself to go through whatever it was I was going through, and I allowed it to take the time because there was days I was fighting it. I'm like, "Okay, enough of this, enough of this. I can't do this anymore." I started thinking of crazy thoughts too, thoughts that I wouldn't normally think of. There was so many times I just wanted to disappear. I just wanted to jump in my truck and fricking take off and disappear for 3 days. Shut my phone off. I didn't want anybody to know just because of everything that was going through my head. However, I worked through it. And
Mhm.
I'm glad that I did, because if not, I would still be holding those emotions inside of me right now.
Right.
Right? I'd still be battling it. I did my battle, the war's over. Let's
Yep.
go.
I think that's vital. I think, through any forms of whatever's holding you back, like addiction, trauma, or whatever it is that's happened in your life, there's probably, if you think about it, and you would have to say, oh, maybe it is a workout. Maybe it's something physical that I could get out of my body, or maybe it's nature. Maybe because I have to say nature works for me. And I live in a city, but there's, even in the city, there are trees, and I just sit in the backyard, and I'm able to connect again. Um, some people, I'm very spiritual as well, and that is something that I've learned that kind of keeps me centered too. That is something that I turn to. So I meditate, but I'm also very spiritual too. Um, like I think it's just this healing process that I became even more, and I think I find a lot of grounding in that too. Um, sometimes, when I was getting more triggered when I was younger, I would have to take off my shoes and rub my toes, just on the like if I was sitting here, I would just take my shoes off really silently and then rub my feet on the wood or the cold cement, just kind of like, okay, like you're in your body, don't get triggered, like you're not going to leave. I mean, my favorite thing is getting my running shoes on and just leaving every time it gets hard.
Yeah.
So it's just like, you're not going to bolt, you're going to stay here. I want you to feel uncomfortable. I'm telling myself all this, like, what is it? And then trying to figure out, identify what are the things that are your triggers, and sometimes telling people like that's really close, like if this happens, don't leave me, whatever you do, don't leave me, let me, I might go kind of kooky, but don't leave me. And I think just being open and telling people, you know how you react. I had a fear of dogs. Ironically, it was kind of weird, it was misplaced, but after my dad molested me, I would, if I got a chance, I would take a chance and I'd run and hit and do whatever it was just to get out of the house. And I'd run. We lived in a rural part of Arizona. Um, I'd run, and there were a lot of guard dogs around there. And so the dogs could feel my fear. And so then they would bite me. And so I grew up, but I didn't know why I had this fear. It took a lot of therapy to figure out why I had this fear. And it's because I just placed that fear on the dogs. And anytime I heard a bell or a jingle or a leaf rustle, because I thought it was a dog, I would kind of start screaming. And so I would tell people, okay, I've got, I've got this fear. I don't know where it's coming from, but this is a trigger. So whatever you do, don't leave me. Don't, whatever I say, and I think that's when people started like going, oh, I could help you through this. And those were my rocks. And I was really open in sharing that, like, I don't know why this is happening to me. Maybe a soldier would hear a pop and they would go down the ground. That was my fear, hearing a bell behind me, hearing a leaf. So you don't know where these things are, but I think taking time to recognize your triggers, taking time to figure out what what grounds me, what makes me the best person. And I love to journal. I have to say, journaling was like so key to me. I was able to unfold everything in life. And I also wrote my book through it, because they were all my old notes where, what I did as a kid to kind of make this happen. And I'd run to another part is I would run, we lived in Arizona in the rural part, and I'd run to the orange orchards. And in there, I would find kind of like a sanctuary. I would watch these trees that were like soaked and drowned in like flooded, and then they survived in these muddy roots, and the trees never hit me back. They the trees were always standing there, and I didn't really get that in life. So the trees were my pillars, the trees were my people who stood around me. And that, if that sounds so desperate, but that's where I was. And the sweet smell of the oranges, I would think like, oh my gosh, and they bear fruit, and I want to be this tree someday. This is what I want to emulate. And there's still a lot of things that I take today where I still like orange candles, like scents that just could bring it straight back right there, where like, oh yeah, I'm right back there. So there's a lot of things I think we just have to take the time to look back and think like, okay, I don't want to go backwards. Sometimes you do have to go one step back to go two steps forward. And that's okay. Give yourself that grace.
Yeah. And look at where all the trauma that you've gone through, where it's put you in your life now, right? Look at the woman that you've become. I
Mm.
mean, I've shared in a couple of my public speaking that my greatest moments haven't come from my greatest moments. My greatest moments have come from wrong choices, from tragedy, from trauma in my life, from mistakes. That's
Mhm.
where my greatest moments have come from. I mean, I wouldn't be on this path that I'm on right now if it wasn't for me losing my job 14 years ago because of my weekend cocaine and alcohol use and because of my ex-wife alcoholism, right? It's led me to be the person that I am today, which I am so, so grateful for. And also this path that God has put me on, right? Because I mean, 14 years ago, even probably even up to 6 years ago, I was still dwelling on my past, right? I was blaming everything on something else. I wasn't taking my own accountability. And once I did, that really opened my eyes and I started realizing, man, I've been doing this all wrong. All wrong. And I'm so grateful for those mishaps because again, I love the person I am today. I can honestly say I love the skin that I am in today, and I love this man who
Huh.
I thought I loved before, and I didn't. Really, I didn't. And it feels so good to be able to say that. And I still got a lot of work ahead of me, and I will continue to go that direction until God calls me home. I'm just happy to be who I am today.
How beautiful. Seriously, I could feel um kind of like your joy and mixed with grief in there and just a whole range of emotions in that because I think that is like when you said I love that. I remember coming to that like I love myself and I used to say a mantra all the time because I had a lot of body images too. I did a lot of visionary and mantra work. I would have words that would own me, and I would try to imagine that the words were washing over my body,
Wow.
and I would say a lot of things like about like I love myself and all my flaws, I love myself and all my flaws, and I had little stickies on my mirror, and I still do. They're inspirational quotes, and sometimes they're mantras. And I just stick them there. And every time I brush my teeth, I love myself and all my flaws. I love myself and all my flaws. And if you are saying that my goal was 100 times a day, but I had lots of them. But if you're saying that every time you go to the bathroom mirror, wash your hands or
Yeah.
what it is, um, it does make a shift, it does make us, it's not this miracle thing. There's not this miracle wand. You are not, i- you're human. And I think that's something is like give yourself grace and time to recognize that it's a journey. It doesn't happen in a year. It's not like you're going to go to therapy, for a year and it's all going to go away. It's a journey to always stay probably sober, right? It's probably a journey to always stay clean. For me, it's a journey not to go back to fear. And I have to say I'm constantly working at like, don't go to fear, just keep on staying in love, like stay in love. And it's a process. That's my work. That's why I recognize that. And I think that's also too is to take ownership of the journey, like, hey, I'm going to stay this course. I am going to stay this course. I am better.
Yeah.
I deserve
Enjoy it.
more.
Enjoy the journey, right? Enjoy it because it is something it's a blessing and it's something amazing. And you are saying so many things, Cindy. Maybe that's why the connection on LinkedIn was so powerful because it's a lot of the stuff that you're saying is exact same how I've been looking at things. I've got sticky notes on certain things too. I've been writing down in my journey or my journal and I'm just enjoying this life that is going for me, right? It's like that saying, life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. And life is happening for me right now. I mean,
Mm,
it really, really is. And it's so nice to feel so comfortable about it right now. Yeah, crap happens, as you said, S happens, like your therapist said, it happens. But again, that's life, right? And it just depends on how we handle it. How do we take it?
right.
Do we allow it to ruin our whole day? Or do we do like a duck does and just quack and shake it off and go about your merry way paddling around in a pond like nothing ever happened? So yeah, the stuff that you were sharing is amazing. And I'm grateful that you're sharing all this because a lot of our listeners need to hear that, right? That it's okay. Everything's going to be okay. Just even if you do have to step backwards, take an extra step forward to make up for it.
Right. right. I
Yeah.
think that's just it's realistic. It's a realistic, um, well, even like if you could just look at your work that way, sometimes problem solving in your job, you have to sometimes go, okay, wait a hold, and what happened historically here? So, okay, this piece didn't work, and you have to go backwards a little bit to go a little bit forward. And
Yeah.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's what
You
we
know,
how we learn that through that growth of that mistake.
yeah, absolutely. And I've taken some coaching as well, and I worked with a couple, Jen and Carrie with Light Force World, two amazing individuals. I love them to death. A friend of ours actually introduced us, and they were guests on my show as well. And I've done some coaching sessions with them, and we came to a point where things that I wanted to see in my life moving forward, right? And they had me close my eyes and picture myself in a stream, on this river, and I'm submerged in this river, and all this water's flowing around me, and I pick a color. I think I picked like a fluorescent green, right? It's just flowing around me, and every time I submerge myself, everything that I want to see in my life, I'm just absorbing like a sponge. And for me to remember this and continuously feed that into my soul and my body, every time I'm in a shower, well, okay, let me rephrase that. It's not every time because sometimes I'm in a hurry and I forget, so I shower really quick. But the majority of the time, when I get in the shower, I'm pretending me submerging myself in that river, in that fluorescent green river that has so much energy and love in it. And I just sit there and just allow that water just to rush over my head. And I close my eyes and I feel, and some days I tear up, other days I don't. I just feel really amazing. And I think it has to do with whatever emotions I'm going through. And we talked about alone is never a requirement. And even though I'm by myself in the shower, I don't feel alone, if that makes sense, right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't feel alone. I feel that there's so much love and caring, and there's something around me that I can feel, and that helps me get through a lot of things.
I think I really do believe that we all suffer. I really do. We
Yeah,
all suffer. And I think sometimes just telling somebody else, maybe somebody might just listen to you, but you'll find somebody, if you share a little bit more, you'll find somebody who recognizes, like, oh, they're really sharing something with me. And when they're that person, they'll share something too. And then you recognize through that through that process, not one, but it starts to multiply, and you'll realize that there's a lot of people who we all feel alone, but when we start sharing what's really inside of us, that our dark sides, I guess you could say, when we start sharing this, then I think it is a very vulnerable thing to do. It does put you at unease, but it allows you to see that you're not struggling alone, and you're with so many other people, that we all have our struggles, and we all go through pain, and in that process there's growth, even though it's hard founded when we're going through it, but there is.
yeah, definitely. There's always growth. That's just how I see it now. Years ago, it's crazy. Back when I was working construction, back in my late teens and early 20s, it's so crazy how we change in life. I looked at life like here on earth was hell, really. That I believed in there was a heaven, but I really believed this was the hell. And I don't know how long it took me to realize before I'm going, you know what? This isn't really the hell. This is our life. This is our lesson. And I still didn't get it. I mean, I've gone halfway through my life. We're the same age, and it's taken me till in my mid 50s, really, or no, mid 40s before I really started realizing a little bit more about life and this journey we're supposed to be on. And I think the reason why is because that's the first time I literally started working on me and visualizing who I am as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I had been stuck in the same, I don't know if this is the right term for it, it's just how I'm seeing. I was stuck in that same cesspool, right? I thought I was accomplished, I was set, I did everything I was going to be, I was stagnant. And we all know what happens to stagnant water. It stinks, flies, gnats come around, right? And it starts smelling. And however, so many of us think that that's where our life is, right? And
Right.
it's not. It's not. There's so much more if you just stop and journaling. You mentioned journaling.
Hmm.
And that'll bring out some emotions and some thoughts you didn't even know you had buried, right?
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. Journaling's a very powerful thing. I love your analogy with the stagnant water. It's I totally get that. I love that stagnant water. Yeah. Yeah. Let those go.
So Cindy, you were talking about stuff that's happened to you as you as a child and in your teenage years. When was it? What age was you when you finally just that light bulb went off and you're like, okay, wait a minute. I don't want to do this anymore. I mean, was it an event that happened to you or just one day you woke up and all of a sudden this light bulb went off and you're like, yeah, I'm going to go a totally different direction and I don't know where the hell it's going to lead me, but I'm going.
I think for me, when I recognized I was at when I was telling you about sitting on that ledge, trying to think about contemplating my demise and
Okay.
thinking about what's going to keep me here on earth. I didn't know where it was going to take me. I was just trying to get out of pain and I couldn't think forward. I just wanted to feel life. I just wanted to see that the sky was blue again and think that it was blue. I was really starting off at the basics and I didn't know where it was taking me. And honestly, I didn't even care. I just wanted pain relief. And I think I was looking for solutions that could get me through the next couple of months. And I didn't know it wasn't one thing. I think there was multiple things. I think um, there's a couple events just when I had my son Brian and I had to be his voice and I was his advocate. And um, you know, I think that was like a huge part of it. I think there was a part where I was homeless, and that's because his medical bills were so extremely high. And 20% of every bill, I remember the first one was $1 million. When we way
Oh,
back in the
geez.
day, I was just like, I don't have 20% of $1 million. So I ended up in debt and then became homeless. And I slept in my car with my kids and told them we were on vacation and it happened to be in the summer. But when I think about that, my daughter said something to me. She's like, Mommy, I must have been grumbling out loud, but she said, Mommy, we have everything. I have my dollies, I have you, I have Brian. We still get those sugar cookies, every day. We used to go to the store and get these sugar cookies. We still take our walks, we got to play in the park today. I thought, oh wow, we do have 3 meals, we have each other. I still have myself. And just I just thought, I haven't lost my mind. And here I'm still going through these steps. And I remember thinking that was another part there. And there was one Christmas, I remember we had nothing and we finally got into some cheap housing and it was $200. And that's because they were going to demolish the apartment complex. And I asked them, can I move in here until you just, demolish the whole thing and I'll move into the other one. You're getting income and you're providing a home for a family. And so they were like, yeah. So I stayed in that. And I remember the room was completely barren. I was standing in the food line and food bank and people gave us gifts. And my daughter said for Christmas, she goes, boy, Santa got it all wrong because they were all gifts for boys. And I'm going to write him another letter. And I just thought like, we have nothing. And I remember we forged I made a Christmas tree out of toilet paper holders and I taped them all up and poked little holes in there and we put forged these little plants, whatever we could just stick, and we stuck it in there and I stuck a lamp behind it as our lights. And I have to say it was probably my most memorable Christmas where I felt I have everything. And we put butcher paper on the walls, and our guests were just dreaming about what we want. And so she had a My Little Pony, and my son, he didn't have a seizure because he was having 63 seizures a day, and I would have to resuscitate him, and
Mm.
got through a Christmas through that. And I think there were some really crazy parts about just when everything is wiped from you, when everything physical has been taken from you. And I felt everything in my life had been taken from me. That when I thought to that point where I thought, no, nothing has been taken from me unless I allow it, unless I allow that feeling. And it was really a step in empowerment where I'm like, but it was multiple steps, like, no. And that's when I recognized, like, really, I have my voice, and it started to become louder and squeakier. And it was kind of interesting at the very end. My dad, um, he had nobody in his life, and he called me of all people to help him. And he was in a nursing, not a nursing home, he was in a hospital. They called me 10 times. He made me his power of attorney, which I thought was just so ironic that he made me the power of attorney. And I ended up taking care of my dad at the end. And I moved him to Seattle, Washington from California. And I was very blunt. I said, like, look, Dad, I'm going to take you back because Brian's struggling in high school. I don't know where he is emotionally. I've never seen depression in a special needs person. I've never done this before. So I'm moving you 5 minutes from the house, and I could see you. I could manage your medical care, and I can't do this from afar. So in this process, I was able to kind of, through all this process, I just thought, like, oh my gosh, like, why am I doing this? But I remember sitting down and looking at him, and I said, you know what, Dad? Um, if a dog was on the street and it was injured, I'd still pick up that dog, even with my fear, and it bit me, I would still pick it up and take it to some place to help me, and to help the dog. And I said, I don't mean to be mean, but this is kind of how I'm looking at the scenario. And I'm just doing what is right for me. And I said, you need medical care. You're a human being. You've bit me more than enough times, but you need help. And I said, this is all about me. I'm making this convenient for me. And he was ready to pass. And he was like, okay. And like, I guess he couldn't argue about it. But I ended up taking care, and he ended up surviving a lot more. And so through that process, through those years, I was able to come full circle. And I got a lot of criticism from family and from other people, like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, this is about me. This is about what's easier for me. And I was really able to, like, dip into my complete compassion and who I am, and not deny myself, and not even have shame for being compassionate. Even though I got ridiculed for it, I just felt more, I never felt more authentic than in that last part of it. And I think so my whole life was a stage. There was not one thing. I There was not one thing, but I think
Mm.
every pivotal part of my life was a stage, and they were just more movement towards where I am right now talking to you, just completely open.
So your healing is also that journey, right? It's a continuous healing. It
Right.
sounds like it. Because and the reason why I asked that question is because some of my guests have said I woke up and I'm laying on my living room floor and my dog's laying next to me looking at me. Some have said, I lost my children, or this happened to me, and that was my moment, right? That's when I knew things had to change. I think you're the first one, Cindy, that really talked about this whole journey, that it wasn't just one thing. And theirs could probably be the same too, right? You just don't wake up one day and take a magic pill and it's all done and said with and it's over and you don't think about it anymore. Because we do have that journey of life that we continue to go through. But I love that's how you put it. And man, I tip my hat off to you. I mean, seriously, really, because that forgiveness, and you didn't really use that word. This is how I'm seeing it. That forgiveness for you, for your own healing, for your own self being was huge. And I don't know if any of those people that real ridiculed you and stuff like that, I just have to say it's your journey, not theirs, right? You got to do what's best for you as they
Yeah,
do for them, right?
right.
And it's not that they were meaning anything mean by it. They were just protecting you as a friend or as a family
Right.
member.
Right.
However, our journeys are our journeys.
They're ours alone and we make it up. And I think just being true to who we are. And then sometimes it might be a reflection of somebody else. Maybe they're like, oh, no, 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 I could never do that. So that's got to be wrong. And I think you have to decipher in there too, like, what's their objective? And then just kind of go, That's okay. I still love them, that they're still looking out for me. Maybe I'm just going to be me and not even thinking too much about it and just keep on going, just keep on walking and really owning who you are. And it is a journey. Um, and I never want to stop like that. I don't want to be that stagnant water that you just put there in my mind. Oh, that's just a horrible visual. I just thought, no, I don't want to. So, yeah, I probably will go on and, stumble still so much more, but um, I've never been happier.
Good for you. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm going to keep going just like you until God calls me home. I'll continue to work on myself because there is no goal. I do have goals and we can reach those goals. Again, I just think that when it comes to working on ourselves, it's a lifelong journey. And it really is, because we can always be better. There's so many times where I thought I had something, I'll just put it this way, by the kahunas, right? I thought I really got it. And then something happens and I'm going, oh, I'm not even close, right? I'm still this far away from it. It's just that my ego really was putting me in this category when I'm not, yeah, I'm not there
Hmm.
for
I
sure.
think also too, we do not have to, I don't want this for my children, anything that I've remotely gone through. And as a parent, I always feel that there is teaching lessons in everything. And I always tell them, I don't want you to bleed to know the pain, but I do want you to create awareness and have compassion so that you don't go down those roads, that these are the consequences. Like, be aware of the consequences, the things that you say, the things that you do, the actions that you take. And I said, I had to, I stumbled around in the dark, kind of alone, and trying to find those glimmers of light. And I said, but you have people around you, and I don't wish this upon you. Some people do have more, but um, I look at my kids, and that's what I always say. No, like, look around you. There's so many people, read, study. There's ways that they overcame. And I said, you don't have to go and bleed or, stumble. Just
Yeah,
look around, because if we have gone through this, we are teachers for others.
absolutely. With you saying that, say every once in a while, if you don't heal what cut you, you'll bleed on those that didn't hurt you.
Oh, that's beautiful. Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, if you don't heal what cut you, you'll bleed on those that didn't hurt you.
Mm, mhm.
So you've got to heal that within, right? Because if not, you can cause pain on other people just because of what you're going through.
Right, right.
Yeah. So, gosh, we have come close to that hour already. I think actually over, which is good. I love this conversation that where I could go on talking about stuff like this for hours, definitely for hours. You
Yeah.
talked about a book. Let our listeners know about your book.
Oh, yeah. I wrote Under the Orange Blossoms, and it's a self-help book, believe it or not, but it's a memoir. And through my memoir, I kind of show my journey, actually, from a teenager all the way to a grandma now. And so it's this journey, but I also have a lot of self-help tools through it, and then just show the steps that I've gone through life and what I've learned in that process. It's coming out in Spanish too, so I found out that there were, a lot of people who don't have resources in the Spanish-speaking world. They look at us and they read English, but it's not really translated right. So I have a counselor who's translating that in Spanish. So I'm hoping to reach other populations, and I have a blog and write and have podcasts and newsletters. So subscribe to me. I
Now,
would really love to hear from you. I mean, seriously, that's kind of what keeps me going when I hear like, "Oh, thank you so much," or "I heard you." Those are the things that keep me going. And I'm like, okay, because we don't need to be alone. And that is really, I don't want anybody to feel pain alone. We are meant to be with other people,
yes,
and
we are.
we are meant to be with other people. I think COVID showed us that, through the pandemic.
Yep. And you've probably heard this as well. Here in Utah, they like to say the opposite of addiction is connection. And you have to have that connection, right? That way you're not going through it alone.
Hmm.
As long as you've got that connection, whether you're doing service work, community work, or your sponsor, right? Some of us have sponsors and things like that. So yeah, we are not alone. And I do want to let our listeners though know too, find someone that will listen, right? Not someone who's always going to throw out you should do this and you should do that. And I know they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart. It's like I've shared in some of my talks that I was my ex-wife's um, alcoholic addiction therapist for years. And sometimes I hold up a blank piece of paper and say, "This is my certificate." And the reason why it's blank is because I sucked at it because I don't know addiction. Even though I had my weekend battle, my addiction didn't go to the depth like a lot of our guests, right? So
Right.
how can I help someone with something that I know nothing about?
Right.
So be careful who you talk to, right? Just be careful and people who want to listen and even my ex-wife, she'll call me sometimes and she'll say, "Okay, I need to share something with you and I need to open up and I don't want you to say a word. All I want you to do is listen."
Hmm.
That's perfect, right? She's not looking for suggestions or nothing. She just wants me to listen. She just need because she knows she can still trust me.
Right.
And those are the type of people that you need in your life, right? I mean, I have people I reach out to where I just open up and I trust them and I know that they understand because either they're gone through it or they've watched me go through it and they know when to keep their mouth shut and just let me vent. And it makes me feel so much better.
Right. Right. I think when you're beginning to open up in this process, I think finding the people in your life that you could share thoughts without judgment, and just give support where you need it, but not too much. I mean, even if it's too much, you could take it with a grain of salt. I
Yeah.
think it's that you're not alone. And I think talking about it, showing up and being yourself and real is part of that. I believe that is 50%. You've healed 50%, that you could open your mouth, express yourself and your pain. I believe you're halfway there. The rest is just a slower journey. The fact, it's like, almost for me, it felt very similar to going through my divorce, thinking about it like, oh, this is definitely the wrong person. You definitely, this is not working out. I don't know when this is going to end. But I thought, like, the years of contemplation about when should I take the jump and when should I take it? I think that is the hardest part. And then after that, it just becomes a process, a journey.
Yeah. Now I went off and chased a squirrel. I didn't ask you. Where can people find your book? We're talking about your book, and then I saw a squirrel and went chasing. I want to come back to your book, so I apologize. Where can people find your book? Is it on Amazon?
It's on Amazon. I think Amazon's the easiest
Okay.
place to get it at, but it's really on everywhere. Barnes and Noble, Goodreads, yeah. So I'm definitely out there, but I think Amazon, most people go there. If you do read it, please leave me a review. I would love to hear your thoughts. Or just reach out to me at www.cindytalks.com.
Okay. And is that, that's your website, right? The
That's my
cindytalks.com.
website. Yeah, I have a blog there, newsletter,
Okay.
and all my podcasts and just like the show will be on there, and book, whatever, yeah, whatever I'm doing at that time is on there.
I love it. I love it. So a couple questions I like to ask my guests at the end of every show. You can answer one, you can answer both, whatever comes to you.
Mhm.
What would you like our listeners to gain from this show? And what would be your main message?
Hmm. I think I think the thing that you just said at the very beginning, being alone is not the requirement. That I think we're always trying to we think we could do it ourselves. We think we have all the answers. We think we know how to do this, but I think we end up very alone and isolated, and it's okay to really reach out, share, be open. It's actually a strength. It's not a weakness.
I love that. I mean, yeah, I've got goosebumps. So yeah, thank you for saying it that way because it's not right. And I know a few individuals who I am friends with that, yeah, they want to move forward, but yet they're scared to, right? Because they feel like they're okay right now where they're at, and they have family and friends that they do things with. However, I don't know. I think they still hold themselves back in a way. And yeah, again, we can't do this alone, right? We've got to have somebody next to us that we can count on. Anyway, that's just how it is for me. I love having someone by my side that I can count on. And I've got good friends, really, really good friends that I can reach out and talk to. It's not the same. However, I'm very blessed and grateful that they're there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people are grateful that you're here, that you're able to share and be so open about this.
Well, thank you, and same to you. Thank you for all the amazing things that you're doing. And I can't remember if I said at the beginning of the show or before we got on the show. I'm sure you've created quite the tsunami. I know there's people out there. You talked about wanting to help 10 people. I wouldn't doubt if you've helped hundreds. We just don't know it, right? We just don't know it. However, one day you will. I really do believe that one day you will.
Change 10 lives. That is my goal.
I love it. I love it.
Cycle. So I do want to say to people who are listening, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. I've never done this before, but I really feel that there is so much grief and pain out there. And just think about maybe just reaching out sometimes to somebody, looking around, look on the internet, find your people, find your tribe, really do some searching, some soul work into this and finding those people that you resonate with. And if you don't resonate with them, there's other people, there's other fish in the pond. Go to somebody else. But sometimes we don't always have all the answers. And you may have the answers at this moment, but maybe next month you don't. And that's part of the process. In that process, that means you are growing. That's the journey.
I love it. Well said. I love it. City, gosh, I could talk to you for another hour. Easy, easy, easy.
Same
And
here.
I know we both have things we have to do during our day. And again, I'm just so blessed and honored that we were able to be in contact with one another. And I know when we first chatted over the phone, I think we were on that conversation for a half hour, if not longer. I don't know. It was a while. The energy was definitely there for sure. So again, thank you so much for your time and for sharing all your love and your kindness and your journey. My gosh, thank you for sharing your journey and opening up and being so vulnerable. It means a lot.
Thanks. It's my pleasure. Seriously, my pleasure.
Thank you. Well, guys, again, thank you to all our listeners, all our guests. I mean, I say this at the end of every show. If it wasn't for you guys, none of this would be possible. We're approaching 3 years in March that this podcast has been going. It's just, I'm still in shock that it's going this long. And who knows, man, it's going to go a lot longer. I know it is. So, again, thank you to all of you guys. I greatly appreciate it. And remember this, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.